In the mid-19th century, deep within the dark woods of Perthshire, Scotland, stood a grand Georgian manor called Ballechin House. It was the ancestral home of the Steuart family, a prominent, deeply religious lineage. But in 1850, the estate was taken over by a man who would completely alter its legacy. His name was Major Robert Steuart. The Major was a hardened military man. He had spent over 20 years serving in the Indian Army with the East India Company. But during his decades overseas, he had moved completely away from his family's traditional beliefs. He became fascinated by ancient Eastern philosophies, particularly the concept of the transmigration of souls, the belief that when a human dies, their spirit can pass directly into the body of an animal. When the Major retired back to the isolated Scottish countryside, he became a total recluse. He lived inside the massive manor house with no family, no friends, and a sprawling pack of dogs. And as the years began to catch up with him, he made a very specific, chilling promise to his servants and his neighbours. The Major explicitly stated that when he died, he fully intended to return to Ballechin House, and to ensure he could easily navigate his beloved home, he claimed his soul would occupy the body of his favourite animal, a loyal black spaniel. Major Robert Steuart passed away childless in 1876. The estate, along with the grand house, instantly passed to his nephew, John Skinner Steuart. John and his family were deeply conservative Victorian Christians. They found the late Major's beliefs completely offensive, and more importantly, they were utterly terrified of his final promise. They didn't want to take any chances. Upon taking ownership of the house, the very first order the nephew gave to the estate workers was direct and brutal. He commanded that every single dog on the property be shot, destroyed, and buried deep beneath the earth. The family assumed that by wiping out the physical vessels, they had broken the cycle. They believed they were finally safe. They were wrong. Almost immediately after the dogs were destroyed, the house erupted into unsettling chaos. The first to experience it was a young housemaid working alone in the master bedroom, the exact room where the old Major had died. She reported hearing a loud, invisible force panting heavily right next to her face, followed by the distinct feeling of a large animal pushing its weight against her skirt. She panicked and ran from the room. Over the next few years, a succession of young, highly professional governesses hired by the family abruptly quit their jobs. They all told the exact same story. They were being kept awake in the dead of night by violent thumping noises coming from inside the walls and doors of the bedroom. It sounded precisely like a large dog frantically wagging its tail and scratching at the wood to be let inside. By 1896, the family could no longer bear the psychological toll. They decided to rent Ballechin House out to wealthy tenants. A family from London leased the property for a year, but they fled in absolute terror after just 11 weeks. They reported that invisible forces were violently ripping the blankets off their beds in the middle of the night, accompanied by the overwhelming stench of an unwashed animal drifting through the grand corridors. This sudden flight caught the attention of a highly respected scientific group in London, the Society for Psychical Research. Led by a wealthy nobleman named the Marquess of Bute and a sharp, level-headed investigator named Ada Goodrich Freer, the Society secretly leased Ballechin House in 1897 to conduct a rigorous academic investigation. They wanted to completely strip away any chance of imagination or hysteria. So, they came up with a brilliant scientific test. Over the course of several months, the researchers invited 30 different high society guests, including skeptical lawyers, military colonels, and academics, to stay at the mansion. Crucially, none of these guests were told that the house was rumoured to be haunted. They were simply invited to a peaceful country estate for a holiday. Ada Goodrich Freer kept a meticulous day-by-day log, locking away each guest's independent testimony in a private journal. When the investigation concluded, the results were staggering. Out of 30 guests who knew absolutely nothing about the old Major or his final promise, 13 independent witnesses documented the exact same anomalies. A hardened, retired military colonel logged that he was awoken by a sound like a heavy animal violently crashing against his bedroom door. Multiple guests, entirely unknown to one another, wrote down that they had encountered a silent apparition of a black spaniel trotting down the grand staircase, only to vanish into thin air right in front of them. The cold, written logs proved that the legend wasn't a product of local gossip. Unsuspecting outsiders were witnessing the exact same entity. In 1899, Ada Freer published the daily logs in a famous book titled The Alleged Haunting of B House. It caused a massive media storm across Great Britain. Skeptics attacked the researchers, claiming the noises were just caused by a loud, echoing hot water pipe system, but the damage to the house's reputation was permanent. No family would ever willingly live inside Ballechin House again. The Grand Manor sat completely dark, empty, and abandoned for decades, slowly rotting away in the damp Scottish climate. Finally, in 1963, following a devastating fire that gutted the remains of the structure, the historic mansion was completely demolished. Today, all that remains hidden in those thick Perthshire woods are the empty servant quarters. The old house is gone, but the historical records remain, and they leave us with a quiet, deeply haunting realization. The true terror of Ballechin House wasn't a made-up monster. It was the documented reality of a family so terrified of an old man's promise that they pulled their triggers, only to discover that some promises cannot be broken by a bullet. Thank you for watching. Good night.